but it's in one location behind big 20-foot high fences, and it's used for research purposes. So I have a bill this year to allow farmers to apply for a permit to grow industrial hemp on their farm, and there's been quite a bit of acceptance of it, and I think it's something whose time has come. Some people see it as sort of a wedge issue. It's a way of kind of breaking down the wall about cannabis, and there is certainly some truth to that. But it's also a separate issue in the sense that this is a non-THC, non-psychoactive form of cannabis that has tremendous benefits for food, fuel, and fiber. And we're trying to, I'm chair of the Agriculture Committee this year, and I've been trying to work on local food for a long time. This is sort of my window opening to try to get something done. So industrial hemp can allow farmers to be much more effective and much more cost-effective to run a farm. Right now, one of the big issues is importing all of our fertilizers, as well as importing almost all of our fuel. Industrial hemp is a way for a farmer to generate their own farm inputs, their own feed for chickens, pigs, whatever, and their own fuel. I mean, we saw a description of a farm in France, a 4-acre farm. The guy uses 1/4 acre to grow industrial hemp. He processes and makes all the fuel for his tractor, and then he has, compost to put on his crops. I did have an informational briefing at the Capitol a few weeks ago with all the stakeholders, as we like to call them, including law enforcement, and law enforcement is the only people who really have any reservations about this. Almost everybody else has got it at this point, that there is hemp and there is marijuana, and they're not exactly the same. You walk into a health food store or a clothing shop or even a grocery store, you'll see hemp protein, hemp oil, etc. And it's been estimated, I think it's a several billion-dollar industry in our country, and it's all imported right now because there's virtually none grown in our country. During World War II, the prohibition on industrial hemp was suspended because it's such an important crop for home security. So this is something we're making progress on. The only opposition we really got was from law enforcement, and it was very mild. Law enforcement doesn't want to be in the position of trying to figure out, is that industrial hemp or marijuana, which is really, for those of us knowledgeable, is a laughable concern, I agree, because it's just not a real world concern. But it's important to recognize their concerns and be respectful of them, and so, yeah, I think we won't ever be putting them in the position of having to figure that out. But I do think that it's something that can pass this year. It's more related to agriculture than medical marijuana, but it's all part of the same picture, and that's about it. I'm happy to entertain any questions, but I don't want to derail the overall discussion. Thank you.
Senator Rubin, I have a question about industrial hemp. A lot of cannabis patients and growers have a little bit of a problem with all of that industrial hemp fruit pollen in the air.
Thank you. I actually meant to address that. I'm aware of that concern. I think what you're talking about is the concern that industrial hemp might cross-pollinate your medical strains or recreational strains. I am aware of a little research on this subject. I've never broken the law myself. But I do know that when you have a hemp crop a mile or a half mile away, it doesn't pollinate marijuana plants. It doesn't. It's just, once again, in the real world, that's not something that happens. Your neighbor's crop 50 yards away doesn't pollinate your crop.
Not true.
There's some disagreement on this, but I'm quite confident that this is a very limited concern, and the benefits of solving our food, fuel, and fiber concerns outweigh this mostly theoretical concern, and that all forms of cannabis can live together as they have for thousands of years all around the world. So I understand your concern. I believe it's not a real world problem, and I believe its benefits outweigh the risks. Thank you for asking.
I want to ask maybe of the other speakers first before we really open it up to comments and questions. Would anybody else like to talk about industrial hemp here on the?
Just really briefly, my understanding, and it's very limited, is industrial hemp, while it doesn't have, it has less than 0.3% THC, it may have a fair concentration of CBDs. And I think that if industrial hemp that had higher concentrations of CBDs, which are legal, was allowed, that could be a source of CBDs for the medical community.
We, just for the record, we're regulated on your, completely behind your hemp bill, and again, to underscore, if marijuana is just simply legal, the police don't have to worry about telling which one is which.
That's true.
Reverend Christie, can you say that?
In my research in prison, which was really pretty interesting, I found a recipe, an ancient recipe, which might be the healthiest drink on earth, and that's called the elixir of vitality. The elixir of vitality is thousands of years old, and it's two simple ingredients. It's a seeded cannabis bud and whole organic milk ground together, and then you strain out the pulp and drink the green milk fresh and raw and unheated. As far as my research shows me, that became the ancient sacrament in India called soma. It became the ancient sacrament in Persia called hedoma. And it became the foundation for the modern drink in India called bhang. So a seeded bud and milk. Also, if you haven't seen the short YouTube called Leaf about juicing cannabis leaves, please check it out. It'll blow your mind. Dr. Courtney calls cannabis juice a dietary essential, which gives us benefits beyond nutrition. It's off the charts. It's so healthy. If it's unheated, okay, then it can repair your cells. He says that when we heat cannabis, we destroy 90% of the health benefit in it. And we're used to heating it, smoking it, vaping it, baking it. So check that out. Seeded buds and organic milk, because it's fat soluble. Mix it together, grind it up, strain it out, drink that shot. Let us know what it is. We can't wait to hear your good health stories about it.
Okay, questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I just have a quick question. In regards to our medical marijuana program, the state remains silent on this issue of employment. And I'm wondering if there's anything happening legislatively to give our medical program something like Arizona has in theirs, which prevents your employer from firing you if you test positive for marijuana if you have your medical card. A lot of us have our medical cards for health reasons because we're sick of prescription drugs that are killing us. Like last year they killed 20,000 people. This is ridiculous. And I'm wondering if there's anything moving forward to give us some kind of protection under the law. Thank you.
Okay, Raphael?
So I can't, the legislature hasn't started yet, and I don't know what'll move and what doesn't. But what I will say is that my organization is supporting a bill where it's an expansion to the housing rights bill that was passed last session. And the version that I support includes essentially that provision from Arizona's law. That it talks about employment and it talks about education and it talks about other medical procedures. So if people are, if you're on a transplant list, you shouldn't lose your spot because you're a cannabis patient. So that's a bill that we'll be pushing forward, and we would really appreciate the support of people here. Because I think a lot of people don't fully understand that just because it's legal doesn't mean that there isn't more that needs to be done just in terms of protecting patients.
You know, also,
County housing.
as a follow-up, I'm just wondering what the ramifications will be for the state of Hawaii in regards to the Brandon Coates case before the Supreme Court in Colorado right now. Because he's, you know, many people are familiar with that, and when they make a decision, is that going to affect us?
You probably need to ask a lawyer. I think that these are questions that are being handled by lots of people simultaneously, and we'll be looking at the outcome of that case. But there have been other cases where, you know, these issues have been tackled, and I don't know that a decision in the Colorado Supreme Court will necessarily have any real immediate weight here.
Okay, a few more questions and then we're gonna wrap up.
She's had her hand up the last 2 times.
Yes, please.
Hi, one of my ancestors was a hemp farmer, and I'm busted for pot seeds, so I'm qualified. My question was about public health and access for your medical card now. I want to know, is it business as usual? You used to have to go to the lung clinic, you go to public health. I went to the website, I saw kind of what he was talking about, and read most of that, it's been a week or so. But they had an application on there, and it goes directly to the doctor. There's no application for us as patients on that website, as far as what I'm looking at. So that's what, business as usual, how does this work?
So partly, I mean, I need patients to tell me if things are not working the way that they should be. But for the most part, it seems like it is business as usual. The change forms, you know, so if you need to change where you're registered, all of that stuff, that wasn't available earlier, but it is available now on the medical marijuana program website, the MUMP website. You know, it's your doctor is the vector for the program. So if you have questions about how that program is working with, the person to ask is your doctor. They've been doing a lot of conference calls with doctors to fill them in.
Yeah, I have a lot of doctors, but the Monk Clinic is only one that is giving me a card.
Okay, so that's the doctor.
So that's why just business as usual, then pay your $200 and whatever.
Well,
Basically, it's just fill out a form, get your card, costs $200 to be able to get your medicine or to grow it or whatever. But anyway, that's neither here nor there,
it's a $38 fee from the government, and your doctor is the one that will do most of that form. You know, they may ask you to fill out a form for them.
Well,
so
I
that
guess
they
my
can
question
know what
was,
to give
is the government doing anything different as far as interaction with the doctors who are doing the legalization and providing us cards?
Well, so the rules, you know, the rules are changing, but for the most part, the registry program is working in the same way that it has in the past. The forms should be fillable online now, which is new. But for the most part, it shouldn't be things that patients will need to change. You know, you still go to your doctor, your clinic. They should be able to tell you if there's anything new that you need to.
And one other question about that, do doctors have to go through a process where they are legalized to do this specifically? I mean, I couldn't go to my other primary doctor and say, hey, you know, look at it's working for me, which he knows already. And he admits it. But the fact of the matter is, legally, could he actually recommend rather than me going back to my clinic?
He could legally. Some organizations we've been hearing, you know, that some people at like Kaiser are not, you know, they're legally allowed to certify, but they have an organizational policy not to.
Right.
So legally, they don't have to do anything additional to certify. But if they have questions, they can contact the Department of Health, just to be sure that they're.
Well, I want to say mahalo to all of you, and I'm really grateful that public health is taking over, because public health is where it really started turning around in Denver, in Colorado. So, all right.
Thank you. One more question, and then we are going to wrap it up, okay?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if anybody knows what's happening as far as the reclassification, because it's scheduled, the schedule as it is now. And I know that Obama is really trying his best, and it keeps getting thwarted by the Justice Department, and they're saying there's no proof, there's no medicinal value, and there's not enough research. Well, that's the catch-22, because the research can be done based on the schedule of the Earth. So is there anything changing on that, or where do we stand with that?
If I could address that, there's currently a case before the federal courts in the Eastern District of California in which rescheduling is the issue. This case was argued for the first time. A federal judge allowed the argument as to whether cannabis is properly classified in the Controlled Substances Act. This was argued in court in October, and we're waiting for a decision hopefully by the end of the month. There's two issues that were argued. One is that cannabis is improperly classified as a Schedule I drug. If the judge agrees, after the evidence, that that's true, this could upset the whole federal scheduling system, and I'm very hopeful that that will happen. The second issue that the judge is considering in this case is an equal protection question. In other words, right now, you can get arrested in Hawaii for the same behavior that is legal in Colorado, and Washington, and Oregon. And that's basically unconstitutional is what the argument is. So the judge, this very, very brave federal judge, has taken this on, those two issues, and there's going to be a decision hopefully in the very near future. If that changes, if cannabis is reclassified as a Schedule II drug, then any physician who's licensed to practice medicine will have the opportunity to prescribe that, and then there will have to be a system of distribution through regular pharmacies. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that will happen. To answer your question, any physician who has a license to practice medicine has the right to recommend cannabis as medicine. You don't have to be a specialist. There is no specific organization that certifies physicians, although there's a number of new continuing medical education courses that are available now for any physician that's interested.
On that note, I think we're going to wrap it up. On that positive note, we're going to end the meeting.
Am I just short or what? Yeah, he needs to speak. Look over my head all day.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Richard Abbott. I ran for county council here recently and lost in this county, and I'm district representing Pahoa. I'm going to go to the county council and discuss with my compadres a resolution and then also some county council action for this year. Barring any, I'm prepared to start an initiative process called Kono Pakalolo. But in the meantime, what I'd like you all to do is write a list of 5 people that you know yourself who smoke and have always smoked, and 5 in your family that don't. You call every 5 people and you tell those 5 to do the same thing. Start working on the people that still live in ignorance, shame, and hatred, and explain to all of them that it's time for a change. However you want to explain the suffering, it's time for this bullshit to stop. Yay. And you tell them, each and every one of you, call your representatives and your legislature. In the legislature, your senators and your representatives, and don't be angry. Don't be out of control. Don't rant. but tell them that you've had enough and that you will no longer politically support anyone who continues to wage war on their own citizens and on your family. You will not support them politically ever again at all, period.
Wait a minute, I have to adjourn the meeting. Sit down.
Meeting's not over, hold on. Order.
So I want to thank the panel members, Representative Senator Ruderman, Raphael Kennedy, Brian Tracy, and our homespun budget. Donald, I guess you should. And I want to say that you were a wonderful group of people. Oh, yeah. This is the best meeting, it's the largest meeting we've ever had, and you were so perfect in every way. Only a few little things, but that's going to be expected from the voting crowd, right? So, all I can say is let's get on this year. 10 days from now, the legislature's going to meet. Those bills have to be presented within the first 10 days of the legislature opening. Put your name on the list out there so that you get on the mailing list with me to send you when those hearings come up. We've got to get the legislature going, and it's only going to be you that can do it. It's all about you. Patients and people who want to see cannabis legalized, we want to free the plant, free the herb, and make the planet a much better place to live. Particularly in the Big Island. Mahalo for being here.